When I first learned that I had sold the rights to High Crimes to Hollywood, I thought, well, that's nice. That's a nice check. And that's the end of the story. Because I've sold other books to Hollywood, and in 80 or 90% of the cases, they don't get made. So it's a strange feeling to sort of see this story that you've created taken over by hundreds of other people. I was nervous about it. But my nerves did not have to do with, this had better replicate the book. This had to do with, I hope the movie's good. I just hope it's a good movie. A movie adaptation has to be faithful, but not faithful to the book. That is the sure route to disaster. It's got to be faithful to the medium. With a book, you've got a whole day to read it, or several days. In a movie, you've got about an hour and a half. The compression demands that the characterization come across really quickly. Claire has a daughter in the book, a little girl named Annie. In the book, she's an important character, and she doesn't exist in the movie. Annie, who is really Claire's daughter from an earlier marriage, becomes the focus of her attention, of her protective instincts. In the movie, there is no daughter because I think they wanted to focus this more on the relationship between the husband and wife. There's a difference between the thriller as a book, as a novel, and the thriller as a film, necessarily because the media are completely different. You can know what's in any character's head because the writer has the luxury to give you this. Whereas in a movie, there is so much that can be communicated only by a look or by a glance or by the way a character is dressed. I didn't have to worry about, for example, when I was writing a book, how did Claire dress? She wore a suit. How did I know? Whereas it made a real difference what her hair was like, what Ashley Judd's hair was like, because that really gave you a major impression immediately of characterization. My agent called up and said, Carl Franklin would like you to play a small part in the movie, sort of a cameo, kind of a Hitchcock thing. Would you like to do that? And I said, sure. And he said, the catch is you're going to have your head shaved. Do you mind? And I said, yeah, hair grows back. That's all right, I'll do it. When I first walked into the sound stage, I walked by the brig, the prison where Tom/Ron is being kept. And I did this double take because I realized this is exactly how I described it in my book. It's as if they had sort of taken this imaginary set and made it real. It was unbelievable. It is so bizarre to be playing a part in a scene that a few years earlier existed only in my head. I sat down there on the first day of shooting, and no one on the set knew who I was. So I'm sitting there at the prosecution table, my first minute on the set, and the actor who plays Lucas Waldron, Michael Gaston, came up to me and introduced himself, and he had no idea who I was. And he said, all right, you're going to have to understand who my character is, how this plot works, what the motivations are. I really want you to understand all this. I said, okay. And then he said, now, so Joe, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Boston. He said, they flew you from Boston for this part? Thinking, what a sad, small part for them to fly someone from Boston. He said, who do you know? I said, I wrote the book. He said, oh my God, am I an idiot? And he began to shout to Morgan and Ashley, listen to what I just did. In almost every case that I know about, the writer is secreted backstage, is kept away, because they don't want the writer to be dissatisfied. They don't want the writer to voice his dissatisfactions, and a lot of writers tend to be dissatisfied if the movie is materially different from the book. Well, my feeling is, number one, no one put a gun to my head and forced me to sell the movie rights. And number two, my book still exists. It's still there. They haven't done anything to it. The book is still there, and it's a different story in some ways. Whenever you're doing what's called a genre film, you're dealing with this legacy of thousands of movies that have been done before you. And people have all kinds of preconceptions. And it has to feel fresh. And yet, within any genre film, as in within any genre book, there are expectations. Certain things have to happen. In the novel, the real world has to be set right at the end. The major character, the main character, has to be transformed, but things have to turn out right at the end. There are the similar requirements in a movie. We have certain expectations. We want, if we are rooting for Claire, we want her to win. We also want her to sort of be the one that is the agent of her destiny. We want her to be the one who without whom things would not happen. This does not mean a happy ending. It can be a sad ending, but it's got to feel morally justified. People ask me often for advice on how to write a novel or what they should keep in mind when they're writing a novel. And one thing is that the movies and novels are very different art forms. I've had friends who have sold books to the movies since then, and my attitude has always been, look, first of all, it's not going to get made. Second of all, if it does get made, it's going to be a different creature entirely. Get used to it. It has to be. And if you're expecting it to be the same, don't sell the rights. My favorite part of writing is the writing. It sounds completely simplistic, but it's true. I love the research. I love talking to people. But when I am actually sitting down and writing a story, I am completely transported. I come home, delirious, rested, in a good mood. I love the storytelling part of it. As a novelist, the real thrill I get is not watching it on the screen, but is in writing it. That for me that's where I'm the boss. Carl Franklin was the boss of the movie. That was his creation. And the book was mine.